Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Horse Banter with Boyan, and I had some thoughts. The initial trigger for this video is a video essay I watched on mouthwashing, which is a psychological, I tend to overemphasize the P's in these words where it's not pronounced, but is still there redundantly. It's a psychological horror game about this spaceship that's stranded, in space. And what the crewmates are going through. I still haven't played it. I definitely plan to, even though I've spoiled everything for myself, but I don't mind it. A lot of times I simply play for the atmosphere, and while I may hear like factoids about a story, I still appreciate the way it's presented on its own merits. So what made me make this video? In one of the scenes, this isn't much of a spoiler, one of the characters says that the best time he felt was when he was an alcoholic. And this comes from a person who's really trying to fight off his demon for the sake of his family. Second thing, as you probably know, I'm a huge fan of the website TV Tropes. Whenever I watch or read or play some piece of media, I will generally go and check out all of the tropes associated with that media, simply because it's fun, and sometimes, actually very often, it answers a lot of questions that I may have about a specific work. One of the meta tropes to TV tropes is people sitting on chairs. That is a trope that essentially says that you won't mention among the tropes within a work people sitting in chairs, because it is something that is so common throughout all of works, throughout all of cultures, that it's completely egregious to actually mention. Where I'm going with this, and this is something that my experience in sin has also led me down this road of pondering, that goodness tends to be boring, and it is a sad fact of life, and I think there is a deeper reason why this is. When we read the lives of the saints, and I realize why their writers do it, it is that people don't, people sitting at the chairs trope, the writers of their life generally won't mention like, oh, they fasted regularly, they attended church, they said their morning and evening prayers, and so on and so on, and so on, because it is something that's sort of taken for granted. The issue is that this something that is taken for granted is a lot of times what allows them to become such martyrs, such wonder workers, such whatever have you in their very specific area and of life and their time, time in history where they lived. A lot of us can vouch that a good deal of us did not have these majestic episodes of repentance. Some of us did, and it's great if you did. But most of us did not. We simply, read the Bible, had a good example, we started attending church, it was interesting, and we started to align ourselves more and more to Christ. However, the issue becomes, and I think this is especially prevalent during fasts, is that life becomes very dreary very fast, because our brain is not fed these very high highs that we're so accustomed to. Guess what tends to provide these highs? It's sin. It's sexual sin. It's sins of like food, of gluttony. It is the sins of wrath. All of these are extremes in their own right. And when we sin, sin tends to be a perversion of the good, whether to extreme or complete lack. However, we tend to go in a more extreme, sort. We tend to do that, especially with the prevalence of, modern entertainment. Our brains are, and especially like social media, internet, and everything, our brains tend to be wired to these highs, even outside of technically sinful things. I think we need, when I say we, I mean I, but I'm simply sharing my opinions on it, and maybe you will find some benefit to it, that we need to find actual joy in dreariness, in the everyday, because most of the time the Lord tends to hide there, not in a video game or in an entertaining book. Once I've read that like the Bible is the biggest bestseller in the world, and some atheists said, and the least read. I tend to agree, because again, Bible isn't made primarily to entertain you. In the book of Numbers, when the 12 tribes of Israel are donating things to the tabernacle, they donate the exact same 12 sets of gifts to the tabernacle. And this is repeated gift by gift for every tribe. You know, it's not exactly a page turner, but it's not meant to be, you know. I think that once we actually start to learn to enjoy the quiet, the boring, that a lot of us, and I know this especially for me, are going to make some real life progress. There is, I can't remember which philosopher said that a lot of men's problems comes from a man's inability to sit still in his room. Yeah, that's true, but I also know from my own experience that I can sin the world out of me just by sitting in my room. So while he's on the right track, what he says isn't a full story. There is also this story about, I think it's, now this is the story I'm going to share, is extreme in the positive sense, that this woman came to, I believe, Metropolitan Anthony Bloom, possibly St. Sophronie of Essex, and she said, "Father, I am praying so much. I'm practicing the Jesus prayer. I attend, I don't know if she said most of all of the church services, and God simply isn't there." And he says to her, "Have you ever let God talk to you?" And she said, "How do you mean?" "Have you ever kept a quiet moment to let God talk to you?" And she was like, "I know what you mean. That's your issue. You don't know what I mean. Go home, and instead of saying the Jesus prayer, just enjoy the silence." So she goes home, and she says that for the first time ever, in her looking at her little living room, she felt the absolute presence of Christ. And ever since then, she felt that presence during the Jesus prayer, during the morning and evening prayers, and so on and so forth. Sometimes, sadly, we tend to bury God with small g God. You know, again, it's hunting for the highs. Sometimes the Lord grants them, you know, the good ones, but they're rare. And of course, we always need to be on guard of, delusion, prelace, you know. However, what that character from Mouthwashing said, "I always felt best when I was an alcoholic." Yes, because the boring stuff is tedious, you know, and that boring stuff is the good stuff. Once we learn to truly appreciate it, again, we will make large progress. Well, big progress. Bye.